Part 23. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 221. Chapter 221 Trust him wholeheartedly. Perceiving the change in her mood, Si Yao felt that this might be something she didn't want to mention, so he immediately said, "If you don't want to say it, you don't have to say it. I am very grateful for his thoughtfulness. During these days with him, his thoughtfulness was really meticulous and meticulous. It was precisely because of this that he was able to completely open up to her. Actually, if she thinks about it, Luo Yuanhang has never told her about his life experience, and so is he. The two have been together for such a long time, and it's okay to have no close contact. They still have secrets, concealments, and reservations from each other, so it is inevitable that they have reached this point. I haven't told you about my family." She held his hand, walked to the sofa and sat down, and said softly. With such a calm tone and gentle way of chatting, Si Yao quickly calmed down, held her hand in his, and nodded slightly, "Yes. Actually, I am from Zhongchang," she said slowly. "Zhongchang, Chu family. Chu family. Chu family. Speaking of which, almost everyone doesn't know about the Chu family in Zhongchang, just like everyone doesn't know about the Si family in Su City, the Yun family in Haikan, and the He family in the imperial capital. No matter how low-key the Chu family is, they are the only known Gewo family. Therefore, compared to the other three aristocratic families, it makes people feel more mysterious and curious. The Chu family is too low-key, so they only know a few well-known figures. People outside do not know much about other collateral descendants and some children of the Chu family. In fact, it was precisely because of this that Luo Yuanhang never knew that she was related to the Chu family. "Mr. Chu is my grandfather, so my surname is not Chu." Looking into his eyes, she said all the words she had been holding in her heart for so many years. Her surname is not Chu, but her surname is Chu. Before the age of 18, her name was Chu Yun. Later she left the Chu family and went to university. Then when she made that joke in the fragrance industry, she insisted on following Chu Yun. When Luo Yuanhang is together, it will almost break up. In fact, she wanted so much to leave the Chu family at that time, to escape the environment that made her feel depressed and suffocating, so Luo Yuanhang was both her boyfriend and a life-saving straw for her, saving her from making up her mind to leave. The Chu family's life-saving straw. After that, there was indeed a long period of time when no one from the Chu family looked for her again, as if she had really been expelled from the Chu family. But she knew in her heart that that was impossible. In this life, it is impossible for her to really draw a clear line with the Chu family. After all, the blood of the Chu family is still bleeding on her body. As expected, Chu Chen found her some time ago, and has appeared frequently again recently. The most important thing is that the power in her body seems to be awakening, as if she was slowly awakened after sleeping for a long time. Si Yao is very smart and can quickly connect things together. "So, that crane was given to your grandpa." Mr. Chu was about to celebrate his 70th birthday. He knew this, and as a matter of family friendship, he prepared a gift. However, he did not expect that his young wife would still have such a relationship. Su Yun turned around and glanced. "Remember the pair of wooden dolls? The one who made you want to have twins?" He was still joking. Su Yun rolled her eyes at him. "I wanted the young man in the wood carving shop to carve an auspicious beast for me as a birthday gift for my grandpa, but then he suddenly stopped doing it, and I thought I couldn't find him, but I didn't expect that he actually finished it and had someone deliver it to me." Young man. His focus on sensitive words is indeed different from ordinary people. Isn't the point that he disappeared and then reappeared? Very young, just like my brother, that's all. He raised his hand and rubbed his hair, trying to smooth away his jealousy. This person is really jealous of the Pacific Ocean. A casual sentence can arouse his jealousy, as if all male creatures in the world are his love rivals. I didn't say anything else, he snorted, quite arrogantly. But the birthday gift is here, I haven't figured out how to send it to you yet. He sighed quietly and rubbed his temples with one hand, feeling that this was also an annoying thing. Aren't you going to go back? From what it sounds like, does she not intend to send him there in person? Shaking her head slightly, Soo-yoon sighed, I didn't think about it. Why don't you want to go back? After a pause, he said, is there someone at home who makes you not want to go back, or something else? Think about it again, your parents. It seems that she has indeed never heard anything about her parents, and when she first checked her information, this social relationship was not found. It seems that some manipulation and work was done. They all passed away, she said calmly, the plane crashed and they all left together. Her attitude was so calm, but it made Sci-Yao feel very distressed. What kind of feeling was it to be able to say such cruel things in such a calm manner? He reached out and took her into his arms. He cherished her very much and said, it's all over. I will be here from now on. Snuggled in his arms, her mood was very stable. Yes, she would have him in the future. She occasionally wondered why she fell in love so quickly and why she had such fiery and wholehearted trust in him that she had never had before. Maybe it was because he gave her a sense of security that she had never had before. This kind of peace of mind is something I have never experienced in the past many years, not even when I was in the Chu family. If you don't want to go, I will send someone there. If you want to go but have concerns, I can go with you, he said softly. Soo-yoon was surprised and suddenly raised her head to look at him. Seeing her surprised look, he laughed and stroked her hair with one hand. His eyes were particularly gentle. The gentle gaze smoothed away the mess and irritability in her heart one by one. He said unhurriedly, the Si family and the Chu family have some kind of friendship. I naturally have to prepare a gift for Mr. Chu's birthday, but I didn't expect. So if you don't want to go, I'll have 2 congratulatory gifts sent there together, which can be regarded as a confession between you and me. If you want to go, I will accompany you. He held her hand tightly. He said, no matter what you face, I will be with you. With these words, what else does she have to fear? Soo-yoon leaned over and kissed his cheek. It's great to have you. That's not enough. He turned around with a smile, pressed his lips against hers, and took the initiative to ask for more. After guarding for a whole day, Luo Yuanhang felt completely at ease. For a whole day, there was no movement from Soo-yoon, and the public opinion trend online was obviously much better. Even the return rate was reduced a lot. He repackaged the old models and repackaged them with the theme of old look, new look. To build, he has already released the early momentum, and when it is officially launched next week, he can foresee profits and optimistic prospects. It seems that this time he turned the tide on his own. Lately, he had a rare and good sleep. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 222. Chapter 222. The internet has memory. It's just that this time, I woke up too quickly from the beautiful dream. Luo Yuanhang never expected that what would greet him would not be a doubling of sales or a doubling of profits, but one hammer after another. At 9 o'clock in the morning, a Big V account posted 3 videos. The first video was actually very ordinary. It was a financial interview video a long time ago. Luo Yuanhang was very proud of himself when he was interviewed. He talked about perfume in front of the host. He is optimistic about the future prospects of the industry, but also regrets the lack of top-notch perfumers in the country, and emphasizes his emphasis on the development and research of new products. He emphasizes that every time the perfumer has a new idea, he will discuss it with him and he will participate in the whole process. He supervised the development and preparation process of the perfume, and also lamented the hard work of the perfumer. The second video is from the press conference held by Wilan when Soo-yoon was about to leave Wilan. At the scene, Soo-yoon refused to apologize. Lo Eun-hang was slightly panicked, and some small movements and eye contact with Jang Shiwei, as well as later, the embarrassing aftermath and so on. I don't know what was used to shoot it. It was like a magnifying glass, and the details were captured so clearly. The third video is of Lo Eun-hang releasing confession balloons downstairs. At the end, he also attached his apology statement, but some key points were circled in red pen. For example, he was completely unaware and was deceived. He was busy with business in the company and had no time to stare at the laboratory. All said by Jang Shiwei, he gave her full power over the research and development of the perfume, and he trusted her so much, but he didn't expect her to do this, and so on. Moreover, after it was circled, no comments were added, as if to express to the general public that, look, the key points have been highlighted for you, you can see and judge for yourself. I didn't say anything, it was all his own words. But that's what's fatal. There are no comments or sides on these videos, only one line of indifferent words: the internet has memory. Lo Eun-hang. The internet has memory. Is he losing his memory? He said what he said so many years ago, and he has also accepted many interviews, big and small. How can he still remember what he said, what bragging he made, and what lies he told? But they were so patient. They dug out all these old things and compared them together. It was a slap in the face. He said that he personally supervised it, but later said that he had never participated and was completely unaware of it. This is completely contradictory. Even if that statement is not true, first of all, the trust level has been lost. Comparing his expressions and exchanges with Jang Shiwei at the press conference, and the confession balloons released later, it was basically a new love and an old love. No matter who comes first, they are definitely scumbags. He was so angry that before he could figure out how to fight back, whether he was going to sue for libel, the second stick was already struck. At 10:30 in the morning, the award certificates, prizes and trophies of the International Perfume Tasting Competition were posted on the official website of Xinjiang Company. They looked beaming with joy, and congratulatory messages were sent continuously. It cannot be said that the whole industry was carnival. Soo-yoon's name was also mentioned. Like the popular ones. This is the glory of all Chinese perfumers. For so many years, Chinese perfumers have not been recognized internationally. When they go abroad, they are always ridiculed and scorned. But this time, Soo-yoon actually won first place in the international competition. Although the people who went this time were all young and new generations, it also showed that she was very strong. Moreover, I heard that Mr. Will was very optimistic about her and even wanted to recruit her into the team, but she refused. Soo-yoon's name was instantly resounding in the circle of perfumers. Originally, this incident was not a direct attack on Lo Eun-hang, but he was attacked just over an hour ago. Soo-yoon's award confirmed that she was indeed capable. They are not only powerful at home, they are also outstanding abroad. In other words, do they want to steal the achievements of bad perfumers like Jang Shiwei? Soo-yoon didn't even need to stand up and say a word. She had already won and was recognized by everyone. Those who had doubted her before came forward to apologize one after another, and apologizing to Soo-yoon became a hot topic for a while. This morning was simply a nightmare for Lo Eun-hang. He thought it was over, but he didn't expect it was not over at all. When he was about to get off work, several more news came out. These pieces of information are all related to the same piece of information, which is about whether he and Soo-yoon were really together, or whether they were entangled in unrequited love. Before, he and Jang Shiwei found classmates from the university. Some of them were their good friends, and some were classmates who didn't know the inside story well and didn't like Soo-yoon's solitary personality. At that time, Everyone was talking about. I didn't know that Suyun and Luo Yuanhang had been together, but they all felt that Zhang Shiwei and him were a perfect match. However, the polarity reversal is coming. This video is still from their university, but this time the people speaking out are their tutors at the time and professors of professional courses. Originally, as a teacher, Suyun was very happy and honored to receive such an honor, so she was happy to be interviewed. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the instructor knew that he and Suyun were in love. After all, she was a top student at that time. He needed her for many things, and later he saw her fragrance potential. I want to use it for myself. Other students didn't know, but Suyun would often pick her up when she was helping the professor with experiments, so of course the teacher knew. At this point, even the testimony from a third-person perspective is untenable. In comparison, of course everyone believes that the professor will not lie. Students may have a good relationship or bad, and there will be various interests out of helping friends and say a few words, but it is impossible for professors to say falsely in such a matter. Besides, on this day, Luo Yuanhang's character collapsed all the way, and his reputation and credibility plummeted. No more evidence was needed. The entire network already hated him. Luo Yuanhang equals liar equals scumbag equals trash. This is the result of a whole day of heavy hammering. He was completely confused. Compared to the disastrous defeat on Luo Yuanhang's side, Suyun's side was a carnival, and Arian wished she could set off firecrackers to celebrate. I finally understand. I finally understand why you asked me to wait any longer. It's so happy, Arian laughed heartily while holding up her wine glass. I'm really, really happy. After holding in this bad breath for so long, I finally got rid of this bad breath. It's out. I didn't expect that in my lifetime, I would be able to see the scumbag Luo being hammered to death. Ha ha ha. You drink less. Suyun shook her head, but the cup in Suyun's hand was filled with juice. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 223. Chapter 223. I'm done, I'm sorry, goodbye. She drank too much that time before. Since then, Yao has not allowed her to drink, so she does what she can. Today is such a happy occasion, so I have to drink some wine. Arian went to get the cup in her hand. Drink, I will take you back if you get drunk. Forget it, I'm more reliable on my own. The last time she delivered it, she almost didn't even get in. Fortunately, she met Yao at the door. Arian knew what she was talking about. It was different last time. I can't get in this time. At worst, I'll call someone for you. Zhao Xian shook her head repeatedly and said, don't try to persuade me. Drinking too much will definitely cause trouble. But Suyun, I'm curious about what you are waiting for. Didn't you just get these evidences? Why do you have to wait until today? Just let it out. Let the scumbag named Luo be proud for so many days, just to make him feel proud and then frustrated again, and to experience the feeling of falling from a high place. There is video evidence, but the winning of the competition and the distribution of the prizes happened to be within these 2 days. She took a sip of juice and said unhurriedly. Looking at her calm look, the two of them suddenly realized, so, what you are waiting for is the news from the French competition. Actually, the news about whether there is a competition or not will not have a big impact, but since you want to hammer someone, of course you have to hammer him to the end, until he is honest and can no longer jump around. That's why she gathered all the evidence and information together and threw them all at once to Luo Yuanhang. If you come one by one, he may try his best to try and come up with some damaging moves, but with so many real attacks at once, he won't even have a chance to think, and he will be hammered into the center of the earth. Now, no one will believe anything he says, and it is useless no matter how much he tries to stand up. The most important thing is that from beginning to end, Soo-yoon only ran her own Weibo account in a very official way, retweeting new products or company content and never participating in any topic discussions. Even during the period when she was scolded the most and misunderstood the most, she never defended herself, let alone closed the comment section because she was scolded harshly. She had a completely detached attitude and only focused on she doesn't care about any slander or abuse in her professional field. At the beginning, some people thought she had a guilty conscience and did not dare to respond. But now, so many solid evidences have proven her innocence. Those who had scolded her before rushed in to apologize to her, and those who had supported her before, now he is even more proud to praise her, proud that he has a unique vision and has not trusted the wrong person. So, in the information age, information is so developed and rapid, which also causes the situation on the internet to change rapidly. No wonder Soo-yoon said at that time, "Let the comment area fly for a while." Soo-yoon was right. This time, Lo Eun-hang was really hammered to the center of the earth and could no longer jump up. Originally, if it was just a matter of his personal morality, there would still be a chance to save it, but now it involves the issue of industry credibility. Everyone knows that Wolan's previous works were all written by Soo-yoon, and the company had personal reasons for this. Not only did she occupy the fruits of her labor, but she also poured dirty water on others. After being so wronged and slandered, she didn't even stand up and say a bad word about Wolan, and her character was high. Wolan's return rate has increased rapidly at an unprecedented speed. In sharp contrast, Xinjiang sales have been rising steadily. Because of Soo-yoon, many people have turned to Xinjiang's products to show their appreciation. Support, especially the models produced by Soo-yoon, almost all of which are hot sellers. As the orders continued to increase, Xinjiang sales reached an unprecedented height. When Wolan's shareholders saw this situation, they questioned and criticized Lo Eun-hang and withdrew their capital one after another. It is no longer possible to change the CEO to solve the problem. Wolan's reputation has been completely ruined. I don't know who later revealed that the name of Wolan Company was taken from the names of Lo Eun-hang and Zhang Shiwei. Was a show of affection by a scumbag and a bitch, which made everyone feel even more disgusted. For a while, the trash cans in the streets and alleys were filled with perfume bottles with the L. logo, which was a big sight. Sitting in the empty office, Lo Eun-hang's eyes were dull and his heart was ashen. It's over, he's completely done. This time, I'm afraid the Lo Immortal won't be able to save him. I picked up the phone in confusion and wanted to call my mother. The moment I pressed the dial button, I remembered her stern reprimand, "Don't call me." Yes, she is so busy, how can she have time to answer her own phone? Even if she can answer her phone, so what, she can't do anything at all. After a pause, he finally exited the interface, turned to text message editing, and entered a line of text, "I'm done, sorry, goodbye. Mr. Lo." His secretary stood at the door holding a box and looked at him hesitantly. He waved his hand feebly, indicating that she could leave. "Let's go, let's all go." He stood up with force, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked outside. This city is still bustling with traffic and still so prosperous and dazzling, but none of this belongs to him. He vaguely recalled the first time he moved into this office. Not long after the company was established at that time, the sales of the perfume developed by Soo-yoon were particularly good. It became popular as soon as it was put on the market. The price of the product at that time was not expensive and it was affordable. But because the perfume is of good quality and has a wide audience, the business is booming, and orders are being added, just like a new life today. At that time, he made a lot of money, and also attracted investments. Shareholders injected capital, and the company was growing day by day. And he was proud in business, and in love, With Suyun as the backing, she worked for him wholeheartedly, and with Zhang Shiwei as gentle and lovely. With soft fragrance and warm jade in my arms, I am simply a winner in life. He once thought that all this would only develop in a better direction. Regardless of wealth, status, reputation, and power, he would have it. He wants to prove to his mother that even without her support, even if he only relies on himself, he can still make a career in the world. Here, he thought it was the beginning, but he didn't expect it was also the end. When did it start? Where did it all go wrong? At this moment, he could no longer think of so much. He only knew that he would never have a chance to turn around. He was finished, he was completely finished. Late night. Luo Yuanhang came out of the bar very drunk. He staggered and was unsteady. He leaned on the wall and vomited after taking a few steps. But even so, he still did not let go of the bottle in his hand. Only alcohol can numb his nerves and make him forget all this temporarily. He took a few more sips of wine, wandered forward a few steps, muttered something vaguely, stumbled slightly, and fell to the ground. Bang, the wine bottle shattered, and his palms were pricked with blood, but he didn't notice it and just lay on the ground chuckling. Until a pair of polished leather shoes appeared in front of him. He raised his head with his eyes blurred, his vision blurry. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 224. Chapter 224, with him, we are not afraid of wind or snow. The weather is getting colder and colder, and it actually snowed at night. But for Sioux City, which doesn't snow very much all year round, even if it does, it's not that big. It falls on the trees in a thin layer, and it's not there yet. The more you accumulate, the better it will be. Just leaving Sioux City and going to Zhangcheng, the scenery along the way is changing visibly to the naked eye. To be precise, the snow in Sioux City is all sleet. The rain is mixed with snow particles, and it still looks crystal clear. But the snow in Zhangcheng is different. The further you go, the heavier the snow becomes. It is no longer snow particles, but large tracts. There were large snowflakes, and the snow on the ground also increased from shallow to deep. By the time we were approaching Chu's house, the snow on the roadside was already up to our ankles. Zhangcheng is not far from Sioux City. I didn't expect the difference to be so big. It snowed so heavily. After getting out of the car, Suyun stretched out her hand and caught a snowflake. The snow fell on her head, shoulders, and palms, but it didn't melt immediately. She hadn't seen snow for many years, and now she felt much better standing in the snow. It's right ahead. You haven't been back for a long time, right? Yao put a shawl on her and handed her another cup of hot cocoa. There is a thermos of hot water in the car, and the hot cocoa is very fragrant. Although it cannot compare with what you get at home, it is still very comfortable when you are away from home. Taking a sip, she nodded, yeah. After a brief recollection, he said, about 6 or 7 years ago. She hasn't been back since she started college. Anyway, she usually goes to school. During the holidays, she has to do experiments, check information, and go to various places to collect information. Anyway, she has made excuses and just won't come back. The old man's temper means that if she doesn't come back, he will never persuade her. In his words, she won't come back until she comes back. Do I still want to ask her to come back? And she also felt that in fact, her grandpa did not love her much. In her memory, there were endless exercises, studies, and various trials and tests. Even at home, she could not stop and could sleep peacefully. A whole night's sleep is luxurious. At that time, she felt that after her mother passed away, her grandfather's blood relationship with her was gone. The most important thing was that he probably blamed her for her mother's death, so he had always been close to her. Can't get up. When I was young, I might still hope for the warmth of family, but when I grow up, I no longer think about it. I just hope to escape from the Chu family, escape from this suffocating environment, and be able to live freely, even if I am alone. Looking back, the break with her family should have started when she formally established her relationship with Luo Yuan Hang. After so many years of neglect, her grandfather suddenly became furious when he found out that she was in love with an unknown boy and refused to agree. At that time, her heart was full of resistance and rebellion, and the more she disagreed, the more she disagreed. The more she wanted to be with him, so she simply broke off all contact. Suyun, Suyun, after calling her twice, Suyun came back to her senses and turned to look at him. Yao's eyes were filled with worry. Remember what happened before? Hooking up her lips and smiling slightly, she nodded. If it's unpleasant and you don't want to face it yet, we can go back, he reiterated again. No, I haven't been back for a long time. It's time to go back and see Grandpa. I've been away for so long, do I really have to cut off contact for the rest of my life? She knew very well that that was impossible, and now that she was with Yao, she should tell her family about this matter sooner or later, whether they wanted to know or not. Then let's go. Seeing her persistence, Yao took the empty cup she had finished drinking and threw it into the trash can in the car. Suyun smiled and squeezed his hand, being with him, not afraid of wind or snow. The next journey was not too far, and we soon arrived at Chu's house. The location of the Chu family in Zhongcheng is not the city center. To be precise, it is considered a suburb. It is a large manor in the suburbs. It covers a large area and is surrounded by mountains and rivers. It is said that from the perspective of Feng Shui, it is a prosperous land. As for when the Chu family took root in this place, I can't remember clearly after so many years. As for the fact that the Chu family is an ancient martial arts family, it has been passed down from generation to generation. It is also a legend. The people of the Chu family are he doesn't really know Kung Fu, and no one has seen it with his own eyes, and no one has verified it. Today, the Chu family is mainly engaged in business. Of course, it is not just business. There are also people who are professors and doctors. Their family is so large and has many branches that when the Chu family is mentioned, they can't help but be in awe. However, it is not clear which household it is really directly connected to. Perhaps it is precisely because of this that it feels even more mysterious. Probably because the old man passed his birthday, there were still quite a lot of cars coming. The ruts on the road were very obvious, and the snow was crushed by the passing vehicles. When the car drove to the door, it was stopped, and it was still necessary to show the invitation. Yao opened his collar slightly and was about to take out the invitation, but Suyun had already lowered the car window and looked at the other person. It's me. He probably hasn't been back for a long time. The servant guarding the door was stunned for a moment, but after taking a closer look, he quickly realized, Miss Sun. Miss Sun, you are back. Well, I'm here to celebrate my grandpa's birthday, she said in a deep voice. Hurry, let us go, the man waved his hand. Go and tell the master that Miss Sun is back. They all seemed very excited and seemed to be welcoming her back. Yao saw her slowly raising the car window again with a solemn expression on her face, so he didn't say anything and just held one of her hands gently. Going in from the gate of the manor, we drove for about 10 minutes before we stopped in front of a single family house. There were already many cars parked on the parking lot at the door. Suyun looked out and saw that Chu Chen's car was also there. On a day like today, he should naturally be there. Only, she doesn't really want to go in front of so many people and doesn't like to deal with such noisy occasions. I will be the representative and send the things in. Please don't go through the main entrance and avoid other people to see your grandpa. It shouldn't be difficult for you, right? Seeing her hesitation, Yao directly gave a plan. He came today not only as her husband, but also as a representative of the Si family. This was a social interaction on the scene, which was inevitable. But she obviously didn't like to deal with this kind of social interaction, and he didn't want her to be around people who talked too much. In such an environment, it would be better to do things separately. This arrangement is simply the best. Soo-yoon nodded and agreed. The gift Seo prepared was a calligraphy and painting by a master. It was packed in a brocade box and was easy to carry. However, Soo-yoon's wooden crane sculpture had to be transported in a special car. He leaned over and pressed a kiss on her forehead, and said, "I'm done socializing here, and I'll go find you." "Okay," she replied obediently, watching him get out of the car and walk up the steps step by step. Soo-fang followed closely behind, holding the brocade box in his hand. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 225. Chapter 225. She is still a child of the Chu family. Seeing him disappear from sight, Soo-yoon opened the car door and got out of the car, and then she saw Chu Chen. He seemed to be waiting for her, looking straight towards her. It was only then that she realized something was wrong. She had already appeared, and the servant had also sent word. There was no way the family didn't know she was coming. How come there wasn't even a servant when she got out of the car? Co-author: this was deliberately arranged by Chu Chen to avoid causing too much commotion. Since they were all back, of course they wouldn't be hiding anymore. She gathered up her clothes and walked over facing his position. "You're finally back," Chu Chen said, looking at his cousin standing in front of him. "I said, I will come back." Her implication was that since I had promised, I would not fail to keep it in mind. He nodded slightly and said, "Grandpa is already waiting for you. It would be better to have him with you, as it would save you a lot of unnecessary trouble, and the road would definitely be cleared of idlers. By the way, thank you for the information you gave me last time." Thinking of the things he specially gave me last time we met, I felt it was necessary to say thank you. Chu Chen didn't look back. "Thank you for nothing, you won't be able to use it anyway." Things were given to her, but in the end she kept them and did not give everything away. From the first time Chu Chen came to her, she knew that the Chu family seemed indifferent to her affairs on the surface, but in fact they almost knew everything about her. Otherwise, they would not be so aware of her situation and collect such information. He gave Luo Yuanhang such private information to her. But no matter what, I still want to say thank you. Enter from the small building on the side, walk to the back and then cross a long corridor to reach the building at the back. The front is basically for receiving guests, and the back is where the Chu family actually lives, and it is not so easy for people to come in and out casually, so you will feel particularly clean when you go to the back. Since so much evidence has been thrown out, why not just bring this one with us, he said as he walked, still nostalgic for the old relationship. Soo-yoon shook her head. "Don't you learn from childhood that you should leave 3 points of leeway when doing things? Have you forgotten?" Of course Chu Chen couldn't forget. She just teased him. He paused and the corners of his lips raised. "So you still remember?" She remembers. How could she not remember? It was something that was almost ingrained in her bones. She couldn't forget it even if she wanted to. After entering the building at the back, Soo-yoon went upstairs as a habit, but saw Chu Chen walking straight forward and turning a corner, heading towards the room on the first floor. After being stunned for a moment, she followed up and asked, "Grandpa, did you change rooms? I'm older and my legs and feet are inconvenient. It's more convenient to live on the first floor." After a pause, he turned back to look at her and said, "It's really been a long time since you came back. It's been too long, so I don't even know about it." Soo-yoon fell silent and then said, "Grandpa is old and has some minor health problems. You'd better." After a pause, he said nothing. He walked to the door of the room and knocked lightly. "Grandpa, it's me." There was a slight cough in the room, and then an old but still loud voice said, Come in. Originally, she thought she could face it calmly, but when she was about to step through the door, she still couldn't help but feel nervous. The room was very large, with carpets on the floor, making the whole house seem extraordinarily quiet. The old man sat in front of the window, watching the snowflakes falling outside the window, his eyes far away. Such a picture made people feel particularly peaceful. Only, her eyes fell on the seat under the old man. It was not an ordinary chair, but a wheelchair. Even though it looks very strong and high-end, it is indeed a wheelchair. "Grandpa," she called, her voice trembling. "What's up with him?" "You're back," the old man responded to her lightly without taking his eyes away. Hurry forward for a few steps, but stopped in front of him. He wanted to step forward, but felt a little timid. It was only then that the old man's wheelchair turned around and he looked at her head on. He still looked the same as in his memory, but he looked much older, his hair was whiter and there were more wrinkles, but his eyes were not as sharp as before. Seems to be a little more peaceful and kind. Is it because she has been away for too long, so she feels that he has become gentle invisibly? At this moment, Soo-yoon suddenly felt that her grandfather probably didn't hate her that much. "You've grown up," the old man said after looking her up and down. There was relief and emotion in his tone. The little girl who was once less than his waist height has now grown so tall, and now he can only sit and look up at her. This is growth, this is the transition from generation to generation. With her eyes feeling a little hot, Soo-yoon simply took a few steps forward, squatted down in front of him, and looked at his legs. At least it seems that the legs are still intact, not missing, and can be used in a wheelchair. "Grandpa, your legs." Soo-yoon raised her head and asked doubtfully. "Grandpa suffers from gout in his legs. When it gets serious, he can't stand up or walk. When it's not serious, he can still stand occasionally." Chu Chen, who was standing behind her, said, "It's been an old problem for a few years. So, no one has ever told her that her family knows what happened to her over the years, but she really doesn't know about the things at home. The so-called breakup and the so-called departure are just her unilateral views. In the end, she is still a child of the Chu family." She gently put her hand on his knee tentatively, but did not receive any scolding in return. Then she put it down slightly and asked, "Can't it be cured?" "Gout cannot be cured. It's fine when it doesn't cause problems, but when it does happen. Okay, it's not a big deal. As we get older, we always have minor problems like this, so what's the big deal?" Probably because he said too much, he interrupted him. The old man was a little impatient. When he said this, Chu Chen stopped explaining and stood there quietly. "I heard, what award did you win recently?" The old man lowered his head and asked, and Soo-yoon responded, "Well, the perfume tasting competition is not a big award. At least it is still some distance away from her goal." Chu Gong showed a faint smile, but it was fleeting. "I am surprised that you can continue to do it." "Okay, very good." Seeing that her hands were still on his knees, he covered her hands and said, "Stand up." Soo-yoon was stunned for a moment when he suddenly covered her hand, raised her eyes to look at him, and then was almost pulled up by him. Standing his feet again, his eyes involuntarily fell on his knees again. It was such an understatement, but it must still be very painful, right? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 226. Chapter 226. Young people today are making such a leap. In my memory, my grandpa was a person who refused to admit defeat. He would get up at around 5 o'clock every day and start practicing Qigong. Even though he was very old, his body and bones were extremely strong. He could stand like a loose man and run like the wind. But now, he has to sit in this wheelchair. Although he said it was nothing, if it was really nothing, he would be able to stand and would never sit down, which shows how much pain it was. Okay, probably feeling uncomfortable, he pulled a blanket and put it on his knees. How long has it been since you left the Chu family? It's been 7, 8 years, right? When she mentioned this, her eyes darkened. To be precise, it's 7 years and 3 months, Chu Chen added in time. Suyun. It seems that you are getting used to it outside. That's fine, that's fine. She was very surprised by what the old man said today. The tit-for-tat and irritation she expected did not happen. Today, he looked more like an ordinary, kind old man. Grandpa. You have a new boyfriend. The conversation changed and suddenly she was asked about her personal issues. Suyun was stunned for a moment, then nodded, yeah. Is it good for you? He asked again. Good. After answering, he probably felt that one word could not express how good Siyao was, so he emphasized again, very good. Are you sure he is serious about you? When did he know you were from the Chu family? Chu Chen always spoke at critical moments. Suyun said with certainty, I'm sure he is serious, and so am I. I know I was willful before, but believe me, if you make a mistake once, I won't make a mistake twice. Chu Chen wanted to say something else, but the old man raised his hand to stop him from continuing. Then he turned his gaze to the window and pursed his lips in the direction of the downstairs. Is it him? Following her gaze, Suyun looked down, and happened to see Siyao walking in this direction under the guidance of the servant. She felt warm in her heart, nodded, and her eyes became much gentler. Yes. Yao, the head of this generation of the Si family, is indeed quite capable, and this time, his vision is pretty good. Judging from his tone, it seems that he doesn't object anymore, and what does it mean that he has a good vision this time? So your vision was wrong last time? But looking back now, she realizes that her vision at that time was indeed very problematic. Reality taught her a hard lesson. Luo Yuanhang was indeed a scumbag and he was not worthy. Master, the servant's voice sounded outside. It seemed that someone had already arrived. Let him in. The door opened and the servant took a step back. Siyao walked in and quickly looked around the room. The moment he saw her, he probably felt relieved and his expression became more relaxed. Qigong smiled slightly and said, Siyao. Siyao was not surprised when he called him by his first name. He walked up to him, bent down and stretched out his hand politely. Mr. Chu, I wish you longevity and longevity. Looking at his outstretched hand but not taking it, Mr. Chu said lightly, you still call me Mr. Chu. The voice is majestic, but the expression is still very peaceful. Siyao was startled for a moment, then looked at Suyun, and immediately understood, that's right. Turning around, he withdrew his hands, cupped them in a salute, and said respectfully, my grandson and son-in-law Siyao, I wish my grandpa a good fortune like the East China Sea and a life as long as the southern mountains. Son-in-law, Mr. Chu's eyes widened in surprise. Are all young people today making such a leap? 1 second he was calling Mr. Chu, and the next second he even called himself his grandson-in-law. Our Chu family hasn't recognized you yet. Chu Chen, who had always been calm, became the first to lose his composure. After all, Mr. Chu has experienced strong winds and waves. He first raised his hand to signal Chu Chen to calm down, and then coughed twice and said, Siyao, you are a junior. It's not an exaggeration to call me grandpa after Xiaoun. It's just that this grandpa grandson-in-law, it's too early to say anything. The implication is that they have not recognized the relationship between them, so they will not recognize his identity for the time being. Siyao glanced at Suyun and saw that she had closed her eyes and was very speechless. He roughly guessed that she had not told her family about the relationship between the two, so he did not expose it and only said, It doesn't matter, I can wait. Sooner or later, it's me. Mr. Chu. Chu Chen. Suyun, ventriloquism, domineering. Perhaps he felt that this topic was too embarrassing and might explode if he didn't talk well. Mr. Chu simply changed the topic. I heard that Huanya's business has expanded to more than 10 countries recently. I just dabbled in everything. His answer was a bit modest. So it's involved in everything. It clearly has branches in various countries, and the business is not small. Huanya specializes in beauty and fashion, and is also involved in the film and television industry and the advertising industry. It can be said that it is a unique leader in this industry, but it is also very special to be able to take a share of the foreign beauty market. Remarkable. In terms of business, Chu Chen also admires Si Yao very much. Among his peers, there is no one who does business as well as him. It is precisely because of this that the Si family can manage the situation even though the number of people is small. Only when the business grows bigger and bigger can we have a firm foothold in the 4 major aristocratic families and prosper instead of decline. But one code equals the other, and the business is doing well. It does not mean that he is a good son-in-law. The previous Luo Yuanhang, who had no name, was half-hearted, let alone a man of his status. How serious he is about Suyun is highly questionable. Your father and I are old acquaintances, but we haven't been in contact with each other for these years. Is he in good health? Suyun was surprised to hear her grandpa talking about this. She didn't expect her grandpa to know Si Yao's father, but they had been together for so long and never met his parents. She had almost forgotten about it. Still healthy. He traveled around the world with my mother, and I didn't get to see him that many times. After listening to his explanation, Suyun suddenly realized that no wonder she had never seen him before. It turned out that he had traveled around the world. Okay, it's good to travel around the world, Mr. Chu said with emotion as he tapped his fingers gently on the side of the wheelchair. It's good to walk around while you're still young and in good health. Even if I want to go now, I can't. Can't walk anymore. He raised his hand and stroked his leg, feeling a little frustrated when he spoke. If you want to walk around, that's not impossible. We can accompany you. He turned to look at Suyun and said with a smile. His eyes made Suyun feel at ease and a kind of support. She didn't know where she got the courage, so she took the initiative to step forward and hold the old man's hand. Yes, Grandpa, if you want to walk around, we can match you. Qigong was shocked when she suddenly held her hand. He lowered his head and looked at her hand holding his with complicated eyes. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 227. Chapter 227. There's really no air conditioning. Grandpa, the birthday banquet is about to begin. Chu Chen looked at the time and reminded him at the right time. Okay. After regaining consciousness, he nodded, and then looked at Suyun. His eyes seemed to be asking. Suyun shook her head. Grandpa, I won't go. You know, I never like this kind of excitement. Yeah, he didn't say much, but looked at Si Yao and immediately put his hand on Suyun's shoulder. I'm not going either, I'll accompany her. Smiling slightly, he seemed very pleased and said, then, just stay. Let Uncle Dong clean up the 2 rooms and stay there for 2 days before leaving. This last sentence is obviously asking Suyun and seeking her opinion. Suyun was very flattered that her grandfather could ask for his opinion. She nodded quickly and said, okay, I will listen to you. Hearing her words, Mr. Chu was very satisfied, and his smile finally widened. Aiken, let's go. Chu Chen responded, stepped forward to hold the wheelchair, and looked at Suyun. Uncle Dong will take you to the room later. She nodded, followed out of the room, and watched the 2 of them go to the building in front. After a while, the housekeeper Dongshu came and said, Miss Sun, Mr. Si, please come with me. He led the two of them upstairs and arranged 2 rooms for them. The most important thing was that the 2 rooms were in the east and west, at the far end. They were the farthest rooms. Suyun Yao seemed very calm and didn't have any objections. Ms son must be very tired. Let's rest first. If anything happens, just call me. Someone will bring the food to you later, Uncle Dong said. It is quite thoughtful, but the arrangement of this room is a bit unreliable. Uncle Dong, are these 2 rooms too far apart? He poked his head in the other direction, and it felt so far even when he looked at it, let alone walked past it. Uncle Dong lowered his head and said, "This is what Master Son ordered. Mr. Si is a guest and a foreign guest, so he should arrange the best guest room." The words were very respectful, but the meaning was that he was an outsider, so he could only stay in the guest room. In other words, it would be good to have him stay here. But Suyun wanted to say something else, but Yao stopped her. "It doesn't matter, I'm very satisfied with the room I arranged." Having said this, Suyun could no longer argue. Uncle Dong continued, "As long as Mr. Si is satisfied, I won't disturb you too." Uncle Dong also went downstairs, leaving only the 2 of them. Suyun couldn't help but said, "Why didn't you let me say it? Do you really want to be so far away from me? Do you think anything will change if you say it?" He smiled, his hands naturally wrapped around her waist, and pulled her forward, letting her stick to him. "You didn't hear it, it was you, the cousin arranged it on purpose, so there is no need to embarrass the servant." He put an emphasis on the word specially with a smile on his face. "Why, you can't bear to leave me," he said softly, leaning against her forehead. "Yes, I can't bear to part with you." Don't think she would be shy. Her arms hung generously around his neck and she said, "So what if I can't bear to part with him? There is always a solution to everything." He chuckled, lowered his head and pecked her on the lips. "Let's take a look at your room first." The room was still the one she had lived in before at Chu's house. The moment Suyun opened the door, she was really moved. The room was still the same as when she left it. Nothing inside had been touched. However, the room was very clean and it could be seen that it was cleaned frequently, but everything was still intact. Only the bedding and mattress covers on the bed are new. They appear to have been dried and look very warm. But there was no heating in the room. Yao noticed it and found that there was no air conditioning, so it felt even more chilly. "Is there no air conditioning in the room?" He looked around again to make sure that he hadn't missed it and that it really wasn't. When he said this, Suyun remembered, "I forgot to tell you, the entire Chu family is not equipped with air conditioning or heating, so, you may have to feel aggrieved at night." Is there really no air conditioning? This is hard to believe. In this era of widespread electrical appliances, even ordinary families cannot afford to install air conditioners, let alone families like the Chu family. Of course, the reason why the Chu family does not install air conditioning cannot be because they cannot afford it, but simply because they don't want to install it. Do you know there is a legend out there that the Chu family is an ancient martial arts family and they all learn martial arts? Sit down on the bed so that you can feel warmer. Yao nodded, "I've heard of it." "It's true." She turned to look at him and said calmly, "Actually, I have been forced to practice martial arts since I was a child. As a child of the Chu family, whether you like it or not, practicing martial arts is just like eating and sleeping. It's something that must be done. Maybe it's because of martial arts. Grandpa has always believed that people who practice martial arts should be able to withstand hardship, hunger, cold, and tests, so there is no air conditioning in the Chu family. And heating. It's cold in winter and hot in summer. All of this is the most natural thing." He said that people should adapt to the climate and should not be greedy for pleasure. She looked helpless. So not only is the entire Chu family not equipped with air conditioning, but the decoration is also minimalist. No wonder when he walked into the back room, he felt that it was too simple. There are also some simple furniture and electrical appliances, but not to mention that they have nothing to do with luxury, and even the fine decoration is still far away. Now you can understand how shocked I was when I saw your house for the first time, right? She said half-jokingly. Although the Chu family is also an aristocratic family, due to different family habits, it can be said to be the most frugal of the four aristocratic families. When she saw Si Yao's villa, it was really a mansion. The Chu family only occupies a large area, but its contents are really small. However, Si Yao's villa is extremely luxuriously decorated, and everything is the most advanced high-tech equipment. Even if he lives alone, nothing is omitted. Excuse me, it's our house, he put a finger on her lips and said seriously. Not bad, Suyun smiled, stretched, lay back, and recalled the past. It was really much better now. At least now I don't have to get up and run every morning, and I don't have to be suddenly attacked at night. In the past, I would get up before dawn every day and run in the morning. At night, there might be a surprise attack. In my grandfather's words, martial arts practitioners' instinct should be to be alert at all times, but, who needs to be alert at all times while sleeping at home? Si Yao. Is there anything else to say? He lay down beside her, looked at the ceiling, and murmured, but, I seem to have an ominous premonition. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 228. Chapter 228, Nowhere to be found after wearing iron shoes. On such a cold day, there is no air conditioning in the room, and it is as cold as an ice cellar. Is there no air conditioning in the guest room? Then the guests who come to Chu's house temporarily have to go through the same training, Si Yao was curious. After all, there are so many people coming to celebrate birthdays, and there are always some people who don't just leave on the same day, but there are also things like staying overnight temporarily, and it's just like carrying them alive. Suyun shook her head. The building in front is for banquets, and several guest rooms there are air-conditioned. But this is the home of the Chu family. The implication is that people in your own family cannot enjoy these, but outsiders can. Si Yao felt something was wrong when he heard this. He thought about it and said, then I am treated as one of my own. That's why you arranged for him to live in the building at the back without air conditioning? Thinking about it this way, I really don't know whether to laugh or cry. Yes, in theory, that's what it means. She actually nodded seriously, and Si Yao couldn't laugh or cry. That's such an honor. The two of them joked a bit, but after lying like this for a while, they felt quite cold. It was not easy to take off his clothes and get into bed at this moment, so he simply got up and said, let's go downstairs for a walk. I've been to Chu's house twice in total, but I haven't walked around much yet. At that time, it was also because of social relations. Basically, I came for a scene and then left. How could I wander around in other people's houses, let alone live in them? But today, the identity and position are different, and the state of mind is also different. After a slight hesitation, Suyun did not refuse. They both put on their coats and walked into the yard. The banquet hall in front can be heard to be very lively. Considering the status and reputation of the Chu family, there must be a lot of people coming to celebrate their birthdays. In addition to the people coming to celebrate their birthdays, there are also many disciples of the Chu family. Because everyone was entertaining guests in front, the yard was extremely quiet. The snow didn't know when it stopped. The snow covered in snow was extremely enchanting and had a unique charm. The snow in Zhongcheng is thick, and it is particularly solid when you step on it. You can only hear the sound of crunch, and then a series of footprints fell in the snow. After walking hand in hand for a while, Suyun turned around and saw a long series of footprints behind her, large and small, staggered and overlaid. The big one was his footprints, and the smaller one was her own. Looking at the long footprint, A flash of inspiration flashed in her mind. Soo-yoon let go of his hand and said, "Wait a minute." Carefully walked to an empty space, and then stepped on it with 2 feet alternately. Although the steps were very slow, each step was very steady and hard. When she finished one lap and then jumped out, there was an extra heart in the originally snow-white open space. She clapped her hands and looked at her masterpiece. It felt like her heart was stepping on it. Not bad. Sci-Yao smiled at her and followed her footprints in a circle. However, he stepped along the outside, and some of them overlapped. When he finished stepping, they turned into a star. A big heart with a small heart. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Mine is not bad either. Your heart is too flat, mine looks better." Pointing to the flaw he stepped on, she wrinkled her nose. "It doesn't matter whether it's good or not. What's important is that I have you in my heart." He made a pun, and looked at the 2 hearts that were tied together, and felt very satisfied. Soo-yoon was even more satisfied with such perfect love words, and she smiled sweetly against him. In the past, in this courtyard, she only had to practice martial arts and do various physical training. There were divided areas in the open space, and each area had different training projects. Starting from a very young age, this courtyard, what it means to her, is a training ground. Nothing else. Now, because of the thick snow that covered everything, and because he was by her side, she finally had something to rely on. This yard seems to be no longer the same yard as before. This yard is still the same yard. But everything is different. Is it cold? Why don't we go back? He held her shoulders, fearing that she would be frozen. Soo-yoon smiled, "It won't be much warmer when we go back. It's not that cold even if we run around here." This is true, it feels cold in the room, especially now that there is no one around. It feels even colder. If you feel uncomfortable, why don't we stay overnight and go back directly? After thinking about it, he made a suggestion. It was really hard to imagine how she had survived so many years in the past. In the business field, I have had 2 dealings with people from the Chu family. The contact was not deep, but I didn't see that they still have such old-fashioned ideas. Anyway, I've been here this way before, so it's not a big deal. I'm afraid you're not used to it. It's not that she's not used to it. It's just that she hasn't been back for a long time, so she's a little uncomfortable with it. After all, after people have stayed in a comfortable environment for a long time, they no longer want to live in such hard days. If you can get used to it, there's nothing I'm not used to. Sci-Yao wanted to say something else, but she raised a hand to make a silent gesture and looked diagonally ahead. He was startled for a moment, then looked in the direction of her gaze, and could vaguely see a person. In the Chu family's yard, there are still many flowers, plants, and trees, and diagonally ahead is a forest. They should look like fruit trees, but because of the snow, they are covered with thick snow, and the leaves have long since fallen. Yes, the branches are bare. There seemed to be someone in that forest, but it was only from the side, and the face could not be clearly seen. No. Sci-Yao couldn't see clearly, but judging from her reaction, she must be an acquaintance. Meeting acquaintances or old friends in her own yard was such a common thing that she didn't think much about it. But Soo-yoon said, "It seems to be the person I'm looking for. Just wait." Waving his hand, he walked towards that person. She did not call her name when she walked over, and even her movements were cautious, as if she was afraid of surprising the person and scaring him away. Having never seen her like this, Sci-Yao frowned and followed her. It's impossible to walk in the snow without making a little noise, let alone 2 people. If there is a big movement, the other side will immediately notice it and turn around. "It's really you." After seeing her face clearly, Soo-yoon clapped her hands and shouted happily. The other party was even more surprised. "You? Ha, you can't find anything even if you break through the iron shoes. There is no door to hell. You just broke in." Soo-yoon ran up to him in a few steps and said with joyful eyebrows, Other side. Sci-fi. These are all messy idioms. Why are you here? He asks strangely, surprised to see her here. I should be asking you this question. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 229. Chapter 229. She is my fiancé. Soo-yoon really didn't expect that the boy she had been looking for so long would meet in her yard. He didn't look much changed, except that his eyes were not as bright as before, and his whole person looked a bit smoky. Everyone who came here today must have the same reason. He glanced in the direction of the banquet building in front and said calmly. Yes, today we are all here to celebrate my grandpa's birthday, so he is too. Then why aren't you in front? Chuyao looked at her and said, aren't you the same? Well, even though he looked a lot wizened, his mouth was still the same unforgiving one, and he was still the same young man she knew. You haven't given me an explanation yet, why you suddenly stopped working when you said you wanted to quit. You promised well at the beginning, but you didn't answer the phone or text messages. Do you still have any professional ethics, Soo-yoon? Okay. It's easy to see him, and I can finally ask the questions that have been on my mind. However, when she mentioned this, his eyes dimmed again, and he did not explain, but said vaguely, I have my reasons. Besides, I didn't prepare it for you and send it to you, and I didn't confiscate your money. It should be even. He put his hands casually in his pockets and was wearing a sky blue down jacket. The light blue was very nice. In contrast to his youthful aura, standing in this pure snow, he looked very fresh. Soo-yoon shook her head. What's the matter? Let me ask you, where is my wood? Speaking, he stretched out his hand towards him. It was originally agreed that she would need a small piece of wood, the kind he had on hand at the time. Soo-yoon brought back a small piece of leftover material. This special fragrance really attracted her. No, his answer was also very straightforward. You. She wanted to say something else, but footsteps were heard not far away, accompanied by a call, Chuyao. It was the boy's name that was called, and as soon as Chuyao heard this voice, his expression obviously changed slightly, and he looked a little nervous and a little impatient. Chu spotted him and was about to call out again. Perhaps he found someone else there, so he suddenly stopped and walked closer. First he glanced at the boy who didn't turn around, and then at Soo-yoon. This is a mature and steady middle-aged man, who looks a bit older. His figure is pretty well maintained for his age, but he is still a little fat, but he is in good spirits, especially his eyes, which are particularly sharp. He looked at people with a scrutinizing gaze, and when Soo-yoon looked at him like that, she subconsciously became alert. Why did you run out? He was asking Chuyao. Although he saw Soo-yoon, he had no intention of saying hello to her. Soo-yoon didn't care, she was just a little curious about this person's identity. It's too stuffy in there, I'm going to come out and get some air, Chuyao answered him, but he didn't turn around or look at him. Is that done? Can we go in? The voice was majestic, carrying the pressure of elders, which made people unable to refuse. After a pause, he added, the uncles are still inside, so don't act carelessly and lose the rules. Chuyao didn't say anything, but he turned around in action. He seemed to be submissive, but when he looked at Soo-yoon before leaving, he felt helpless. Perhaps it was the look in his eyes or the middle-aged man's tone that made her uncomfortable. Soo-yoon almost didn't think about it and opened her mouth to call him, don't leave yet, I haven't finished speaking yet. She finally caught the middle-aged man's attention. He stopped and turned around, his eyes firmly locked on her. The eyes were like two rays, scanning her coldly from top to bottom. There was a coldness in his eyes, as if he was dissatisfied with her behavior. To be honest, the moment he looked over, Soo-yoon felt a chill go down her spine, but she also thought that he was not one of her own, so no matter who he was, there was no need to be afraid of him. Thinking like this, I gained a lot of confidence. I straightened my back and looked directly at him without avoiding it at all. He probably didn't expect that a little girl would be so courageous. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, his brows furrowed slightly, and he opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted first. Uncle Yoon Seo, who had been standing not far away and watching quietly, stepped forward, walked to Soo-yoon's side, and stood still. Seeing him, the man called Uncle Yoon was stunned for a moment. Seo. I didn't see you in front just now. I thought you sent someone else here this year. He spoke in a formal manner, skillfully and naturally. I didn't expect to see Uncle Yoon here. The heavy snowfall this year came a little late. He nodded slightly. In terms of attitude, he was very polite to Seo. At least compared to ignoring Soo-yoon, he really paid too much attention to it. Seo smiled slightly and turned his gaze to the young man aside. This is. Yoon Bokin turned sideways and tugged on the young man's sleeve. This is Kwanzaa, Yoon Chwaeo. Chwaeo, this is the Secretary General of Hwanya. You should call him Brother Si. Soo-yoon opened her eyes wide when she heard what the two said. Yoon Chwaeo? The Yoon family? Could it be the Yoon family in Haikan? But judging from his familiarity with Seo, the tone and attitude of his words, and the fact that he was able to come to celebrate his grandpa's birthday, it seems that the Yoon family has not run away. This was so shocking. She never expected that the young man who loved wood carving, had a little bad temper, but was also a little cute, was actually a member of the Yoon family in Haikan. Is the world so small? Yoon Chwaeo looked at Seo, moved his lips, and said in a daze, Mr. Si. Obviously the title Brother Si made him uncomfortable. Seo didn't care about the way he addressed him and nodded with a smile, but Yoon Bokin was very unhappy and glared at him hard. Mr. Si, the banquet has already started, why don't you go to the table first? Yoon Bokin said, and then pulled his son's cuffs. Let's go. However, before his hands touched his sleeves, Yoon Chwaeo moved aside and avoided his touch, looking very reluctant. This made Yoon Bokin's face look very ugly. About to get mad. Uncle Yoon, Soo-yoon said. Since Seo called like that, it would be okay for her to follow suit. Sorry, I have something to talk to Chuyao about. Can you ask him to go back later? You are. Yoon Bokin frowned. He had no impression of this face, and he didn't quite remember whose face it belonged to. Seo raised his hand and took her into his arms, saying warmly, she is my fiancée. The word wife is twisted around the mouth, and finally changed slightly. But even this left those two people dumbfounded. Fiancée. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 230. Chapter 230. You don't care. Even Yoon Bokin could not hide his surprise. Although this is a private matter, for people of their status, if they have a date, or maybe getting married, it is impossible for no news to come out. This Seo has always been a golden bachelor in the eyes of women. Not to mention other ordinary people, even the ladies in the circle have regarded him as an ideal marriage partner. There has been almost no news about him for so long. He was the one who was involved in the scandal. He devoted all his attention to his career and developed the Si family's business in full swing. Now I suddenly heard that he had a fiancée. The key thing was that it came from his own mouth. It was so shocking. Fiancée, Yoon Chwaeo widened his eyes in surprise and looked at Soo-yoon. Yoon Bokin scolded, Chuyao, you have no manners. He calmed down his surprised emotions, and his attitude towards Soo-yoon was a little more polite. This is really unexpected good news. What should I call this girl? Hello, Uncle Yoon, I'm Soo Yoon. She stretched out a hand to him politely. After all, he was an elder, so he still had to say hello. Yoon Bokyeon hesitated for a moment, but felt that the name was slightly familiar, and pondered for a moment, are you Mr. Chu's granddaughter? Soo Yoon was even more surprised than him. The Chu family's behavior has always been very low-key. In addition, there are many branches and disciples. Not many outsiders know exactly who the direct children and relatives are. So for all the years she has been outside, no one has ever known her relationship with the Chu family. But this Yoon Bokyeon could easily tell that she was the granddaughter of Mr. Chu, so she was very familiar with and understood the Chu family. He was right. Soo Yoon couldn't deny it, so she nodded, yes. It turns out that Mr. Chu's granddaughter is you. His words always sounded meaningful. Soo Yoon didn't know what he meant, so she smiled a little awkwardly. Mr. Si, you have good taste. He added another sentence as his eyes shifted to Si Yao. Thank you, I think so too. Si Yao smiled and turned to look at Soo Yoon. His expression and tone were quite proud. Soo Yoon. Uncle Yoon, Chu Yao and I are friends. I still have something I want to talk to him about. Can I lend him a few minutes? Seeing that the atmosphere had relaxed a lot, Soo Yoon struck while the iron was hot and said quickly. Perhaps because he knew her identity, or perhaps to save Si Yao's face, Yoon Bokyeon was not rude this time, but looked at his son and said, it's rare to make a few serious friends, so, be nice, let's chat for a while. After saying that, he turned around and headed towards the banquet building in front. Seeing the person walk away, the heavy and oppressive atmosphere instantly lightened a lot. As expected, there were no elders around, so people no longer had to be so tense. Soo Yoon turned around and found that Yoon Chwaeo had been staring at her with strange eyes and walked straight towards him. Yoon, Chu, Yao. This was the first time he was called by his first and last name. It turned out that his surname was Yoon. I never expected that the carving boy I met by chance in a small wood carving shop would be the Yoon family in Haikan. People. Yoon Chwaeo raised his eyebrows and felt strange to be called like that by her. Stretching out her hand, with her palm facing up, she continued the topic very confidently, where is my wood? Yoon Chwaeo. No, I've finished it, he said casually. From his reaction, Soo Yoon Hui believed that he was evil. No matter what you promised me, even if it is used up, you have to grow it for me now. Children can't break their promises and get rich, and you have to be trustworthy. She was serious. Yoon Chwaeo was helpless by her questioning. He turned to look at Si Yao and said, you don't care. Si Yao shrugged, meaning there was nothing he could do to help. Seeing that he was alone and helpless, Yoon Chwaeo was very helpless. No, what do you want that piece of wood for? You want a birthday gift, and I helped you complete it, so why do you have to live with a piece of wood? Originally, she didn't mind explaining it to him, but who made him have a bad attitude? Soo Yoon said, you don't care. Anyway, you promised me. Seeing the young man's fair face turned red from holding back, looking innocent and helpless, Si Yao took a step forward and said, if it's not convenient for you to send it, we can pick it up ourselves. If it's because of money, you can give me the price. It can be opened if. After a pause, he said slowly, if there is really any difficulty, you might as well speak up. Maybe we can help. Soo Yoon didn't say anything, but she still agreed with what he said. It's not that it's embarrassing, but I won't keep this thing with me at all times. Pursing his lower lip, he looked at Soo Yoon, if you insist, let's do it next week. I'll send it to you myself next week. In any case, she finally relaxed. Soo Yoon's eyebrows moved, seriously. TCH. As if this sentence was an insult to him, he whispered, why did I lie to you? Well, I'll wait for you next week. Soo Yoon nodded, and then she took back her hand, finally satisfied. But then I thought about it and felt something was wrong. Did you change your mobile phone number? What should I do if you disappear again and don't answer my calls? This time, before he could speak, Sci-Yao spoke for him first. Even if he goes missing, the entire Yun family cannot go missing. There is no need to worry about finding his people. Besides, I also believe that Master Yun will definitely say you did it, didn't you? The hand hanging by his side clenched unconsciously, his lips pressed into a tight line, and he muttered, I will definitely do it. After saying that, Yun Chuao turned around and walked in the opposite direction. Although his steps were a bit hurried, his back looked so stubborn. Look, I'm going to be jealous, he said this, but he took off his coat and wrapped it around her, for fear that she would get cold. Seeing that the person had walked away, Su-Yun retracted her gaze and turned to look at him. I really didn't expect that. What? I never expected that he would be a member of the Yun family. She sighed with emotion. I knew that Uncle Yun had an only son who was very strict in his discipline and had great expectations, but I never expected that it would be him. It's no wonder that she hasn't been back to Chu's house for so many years. It's not surprising that she hasn't seen Yun Chuao, but in Sci-Yao's impression, it seems that she has never seen this young man. So, the world is a circle, going around, and the final origin is also the end point. He looked up at the sky. It's snowing again, shall we go back to the house? Su-Yun looked at the snowflakes falling in front of her eyes, nodded, and walked with him to the small building at the back. End of this chapter.